have a concept for a video. It is American drift shops all take too many different types of projects. They take SR swaps and, I don't know, GS300. V8s and 350Zs, SRs and 350Zs, RBs and 350Zs, like any type of engine swap. I'm doing a bad job explaining, but they don't have the focus to choose one thing and do it really well. Because if you're a shop that's going to put a rotary in something and then an SR and then a V8 or work on all these different chassis, you don't know anything about any of them. You're always in the learning phase, and it's not fair for the customers to always be paying you to learn because you're not fast, you're not good. And I didn't realize that was a big problem until I went to Japan, and the shops were like, we only do this. And not only that, the shop would be like, we only put this turbo on the car. We will not put a different turbo on that we've never run on my own car. Because I was at MCR Factory with Yokoi, and he's like, oh, I can't do that because I haven't run that, and I don't know if it'll work for the customer, and I can't guarantee they'll have a good experience, and I can't charge a customer to learn. So anyways, I came here, and you only work on JZ stuff, and almost only, you know, Supras. So your customers are getting the best experience probably. You're super focused. Do you want to talk about that? Because like,
yes, I do want to talk about that, but it was not always this way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, maybe for myself and probably the customer, just how you said. When we first started, it was anything I could get because I had to pay rent, and like you said, you're learning on everything you do unless it's whatever you did before you had the shop. And for me, I had worked on a couple other things, and I had owned a V8 and owned a 2J and owned a rotary. Funny you say all those motors, but like...
Huge shout out to all the sponsors of Drift Week, starting with BC Racing Custom Coilovers, who support more grassroots and professional drifters than any other coilover company. Thank you to WhatMonstersDo.com for supporting all of our content for so long, including our Japanese content. Use the discount code EBISU on their website for a discount. Thank you to NK Wheels. They make so much cool stuff, all the way from my drift wheels all the way up to F1 wheels. Thank you to ECU Master for supporting grassroots guys all the way up to the best driver in the world, James Dean. Thank you to YPlay Imports. If you need a rad right-hand drive car from Japan, hit up Trenton at YPlay Imports and get them before the prices get too high. And thank you to Drift HQ for bringing in that support vehicle. And congratulations on everything that you've been doing this year, Drift HQ. You are killing it.
Like, I had older people constantly trying to give me, you know, their 2 cents, saying, dude, like, focus on the one thing, like, do the one thing. And I was like, you know, I don't think I was in the position where I could just be like, I'm only doing Supras and like, we're gonna be fine and I'll pay all the bills. And like, I had a lot of bills that are still due. And I wanted to do FD, so I just said yes. I was the yes man to everything, and it was pretty horrible because when you get, you know, a project that's a Nissan chassis with like a GM motor, and then you're trying to make it work, and the only things that are gonna be like the same will be like the welding and the building of like the fab stuff. And then after you get into the other stuff, it's really technical, and you want to kill yourself because you're like, I can't charge the customer for this. So you're losing a bunch of like sleep and time, not making money. And then you're also like trying to, you know, force it out. But once, you know, jump, you know, 5 years in advance or 6 or, you know, to now, it's been almost 9 years in the same location. And we were able to just say Supras and or 2J swaps in very selective. So I get asked, do you want a 2J swap my, you know, truck?
C3 Corvette.
Basically, no. Well, there is, that is here. There's a C3.
I released a C3 Corvette 2JZ video this morning.
Oh, okay. There's another one back there.
Yeah, I've never seen him in my life. Now that I've seen 2 in 2 days.
That's weird. Yeah. So anyways, like, that guy convinced me. I did not want to do that C3 Corvette with a 2J, but he just kept persistently asking, like, it's going to be really expensive and you're going to pay me to figure it out. Yep, ready. So that guy got an exception because he said yes to that, like, what I told him. But if, you know, the shop would specialize in just JZs and just, you know, if you can, Borg Warner EFR turbos and like you know, like what you were saying, then it's like the customer gets a, you know, I can tell them, this is what you're going to get, and they're going to get exactly that. And I can almost, like, within reason, quote it before it happens, like, you know, without the hurdles that may come up or whatever in a car build. But it took me years to get there, and now that we got there, I'm able to pick and choose the right customers, because you'll get, like, let's say you get 100 calls in, you know, 5 months, and, like, 5 of them would be good customers, and you just work on the 5, and like that's enough to pay the bills of the shop, and you do really quality work, and I can enjoy it and still be passionate about each car that's here.
So you don't really set yourself up for failure like you did in the beginning.
Yeah.
How many of those projects were a disaster and turned out badly?
I never let it turn out bad, but I guarantee you it affected like my own personal race program, because I was like, I can't let it leave and it has my name on it. I'm sure it didn't turn out maybe like perfect, but like I made sure that it functioned and it worked, and when it left, like they got what they paid for. But I feel like I made less money on it, and it was harder on me and like the team of guys that was working on the car, and like some of us would just dread like, this week is like, you know, whatever car, you know, the 4-rotor RX-4, like we had that customer here for years, and we just recently kicked him out. I'm like, no more. And we had an NSX that wanted to do a K24 swap, which that would be a cool project, right? And he convinced me because he was a previous Supra customer, and I built him a Supra, and it turned out great. Then he gets this NSX, and we pulled the motor out of the NSX, and then it sat for a while, and I finally called him. I was like, dude, we're not the shop for you. I'm sorry. I'm going to decline the project. And I made him take. It's sad,
Oh
but
man,
you're
like, also please bring boxes. It's in boxes now.
Yeah, you're so right.
Well, what I was going to say about that too is, say even something as simple as I've driven a bunch of high horsepower Supras. Not one of them had a good power band.
Oh my God.
And I'm sure you've driven that stuff before. Like
they're all like that.
One had a GT 4788.
Yeah.
And like you look at it and you're like, oh man, this is not going to work. And then you drive it and the car was so bad.
Yeah. It's like this. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, it had problems I didn't even realize. Like you couldn't hit boost in first gear really.
Because it like never quite made it.
So like that means second gear really only made boost from, because you can't put enough load on it when all that stuff going faster. So anyways, long story short, the car was so slow underneath like say 60 miles an hour, unless you like drag launched it or whatever.
Or burn the clutch or some crazy thing.
It was so slow under 60 miles an hour, and then it was really fast up to
On
like
the
140
highway,
or 150, 160. But it just became something that was like, you couldn't even drive it aggressively. It was slower than like a Corolla at most speeds, and people don't understand that. And I was going to say
so much to say about the power band of a
go ahead.
JZ.
But, yeah, I was just going to say, like, so if you accidentally built a customer like that, a car, you would give them such a bad experience, and they would hate the car.
They might.
Yeah. So go ahead. Have you ever done that?
So I get, every customer that's like, I got a Supra and I'm going to build it, or, you know, they bought someone else's car that had 2004 technology in it, which might be like some of those ones you drove.
I absolutely was.
And the power band, like if you guys are looking, it goes like this, and then there's like this peak power at, you know, 950 horsepower, and then it falls off, and it's like, oh, that's great to drive that, you know, 200 RPMs of 900 horsepower. So,
and it just blows the tire up when you're there, so it doesn't even go forward.
yeah. Oh my God, it's so stupid. So what they do when they're building these cars, they're like, what are the biggest lift cams? What are the, you know, highest tension springs for like the valve springs? Like, how big of a port can I go on? And like, what? And they're just like, I'm the man, I got the biggest. And like, it's like, no, you're an idiot. But they didn't ever drive one. They didn't drive like a power band that's as close to a V8 as you could get out of a 2J. They didn't drive anything. They drove like, they bought this car and they really want to dump a bunch of money and like make 1,000 horse. They just want to say I have 1,000 horsepower in reality. So one of my biggest things for a customer when they say that is I'm like, what did you have before? And so I'm like, trust me, 850 is like the sweet spot. And they're like, why? And I'm like, you need the smallest cams you can buy. You don't port the engine. You do like a bowl port, which is like barely porting right underneath where the valve seat is. And then like the springs don't really make that big of a difference. You can do like 100-pound springs. You don't need to do 125-pound springs. That's way the fuck overkill for, you know, 850 horsepower. And if the guy's dead set on 1,000 horsepower, you give him 920 and like be like, trust me, dude, this will spin the tires in fourth gear on the freeway still, but it will like hit boost by 3,800 and bring it all the way to 7,000, and then from 7 to 76, you'll lose like 80 horsepower, but it's pulling so damn hard from the other part that 80 horsepower is not going to matter. And they're like, but I want these big cams. And I'm like, no, you like, no. And I just keep saying no. And then when I get it for them finally and I finish it, they're like, oh my God, I smoke every car I drive.
Yeah.
Which hopefully they're on the racetrack when they do that.
Yeah, and there's no way for you to know all this stuff without having done it yourself.
And I did it the wrong way first.
Right.
Trust me.
And it's so expensive to get all that knowledge, and that's what I think customers should be paying a shop for. Because jumping back to my original thing, I think that all drift shops, for the most part, say 90% of them, are bad for the community, ruin most of the customers' lives, involved with drifting.
Financially, kind of, too.
Ruin it, and they all quit. Because most of the time, if you're going to be a drifter, you kind of have to be able to work on all your own stuff or it gets out of hand. And if you trust a shop, I don't think there's many shops that know what they're doing to create like a joyful car. That's a good way to say it. The Japanese shops most of the time
make a joyful
car. And I mean, some of them are riced out and garbage, just like here in the States. But like, if you go to some of the really good guys, like if you went to Arito, or you went to
McCoy,
any of those guys like that, Arito would give you a joyful car. He'd be like, oh, it has to have this, all these points that it hits. You don't want it to be too loud on the highway. You don't want it to do this. They're going to give you something really good, and they're going to have made all those mistakes and know exactly what to do.
So then they can sell
and
it
you
to
can
you.
do that. So, in short, all drift shops have ruined drifting.
I don't know how someone could afford to drift and pay a shop to build their car, and the shop actually...
Says the guy that charges them to build their cars.
I would literally... look in the shop, like how many drift cars do you see? Mine, and that one will be a drift car, and that I literally try and build like a street Supra, but it's a race car. They trailered it here, no plates, but... that kind of Supra right there, like that red one up there.
Yeah.
And you literally only need to, I need 2 of those a year, and then some little side job things, like full builds. But that car is going to be so expensive to build. That guy does have a lot of money though, and he wanted to do it. He committed to it.
Yeah, you're in California. This place is full of money.
Yeah, but I don't see how someone can legit drift and pay a shop to service their car, build it, and all this. They need to, like you said, they got to be able to work on it themselves.
How much labor at your labor rate goes into this car? 200 grand?
Probably. I never write this down.
Yeah, but just thinking about it.
And then you tear it apart, you break it at the track, fix it, break it at the track, fix it, and it's the people that get into drifting for the fun of it don't realize how often you break and fix, it's every time almost, I
made a whole series called Texas Street Legal that doesn't allow you to change out the engine, the injectors, do any of those things.
That's a good thing because it'd be more reliable.
You can't change anything, so you can't do anything. Can't you run a JZ car really? Because they're no, I just mean because they're too expensive.
Oh, I was gonna say
to have factory JZ cars.
Enough horsepower though.
Yeah, you can. 350's plenty.
Okay, but that's a big pig of a car.
So
hey, wait. If you have time, you should drive the NA SC300 drift car I made. It's sitting right outside. It makes NA 200 horsepower, but
I feel like I know what this feels like.
It's just full commitment, and you can only drift first. Are
you gonna bring it to Apple Valley?
It's too slow.
Yeah.
It's will not spin third gear, and that's 65 PSI rear tires. It's such a heavy car.
Yeah.
That's what that little NA 2J that I'm turning.
I drive a JZX in Japan at stock boost.
If it had 300, it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
It's 200. Yeah.
The turbo JZs pick up power fast
perfect,
too.
Yeah.
With an exhaust and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any unique thoughts like that on the subject of shops?
Of shops? I do. I do observe other shops like yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say the American car shops in America focus on just Mustangs or just Corvettes. They do a very good job of that. They specialize very well, and it's the same type. It's not just the Japanese that do it. The American shops do it.
But not in drifting.
But not in drifting, and why is that? It's because there's not
drifting,
enough.
There wasn't an adult started the shop and was this is a business, I'm going to start a shop. It's a kid or younger adult with a passion for drifting that worked on his own car. It was reliable enough at the track. He had the skill set to fab and mechanical skill set and fab skill set, or some of each of that, and then was I'll start a shop. And then he just needs to make money, and he's not thinking business smart. But if you think about it, a Corvette shop that probably has some old dude that liked Corvettes, and then things escalated or whatever it was, and they're just strictly Corvettes or strictly Mustangs. And then there's plenty of Supra shops that are not drift shops that are strictly Supra, and then they were like Titan or Real Street, and there's got to be other ones. They were successful, but like drift shops, even like myself, like I made a ton of mistakes at the beginning of the shop, and I would take anything and everything, and you just get excited for these builds, and then you're in it, you're like, what? I can't do, I'm gonna die,
Are there any drift shops in America that you look up to that are like that do a really good job focusing?
I don't think so. There's no, when I think of the best drift shop that I can think of is probably not in America, would be HGK, and it's just wow, they make some really nice.
They just kill it on all fronts, though.
I'm not saying I want to be like them or something, but I'm just saying wow, they make an exceptional chassis, and their stuff is all over the world now. But there's nothing like that in America. And the really good shops that have a drift car are usually the owner of a team, or the crew chief of a team that does pro drifting, and he's not building cars for anyone else typically.
Yeah.
And the drift shops are almost like a joke, like you're saying. It's sad to say that, guys. I'm not trying to talk crap, but I'm just saying.
Everybody with the drift shop.
Business-wise, they're not becoming millionaires off this, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't Drift HQ doesn't build cars, but they sell parts. They seem like they did a good job, but they don't really build cars.
I don't think any of those shops can necessarily scale the building of cars, because a shop, you can scale selling parts.
Yeah.
You can't scale this.
No.
I mean, you could maybe go up a couple more bays, but you could never have 100 cars in here with 100 mechanics, where you can't do that with Turing 14 or something like that.
The people that work for you in a shop are going to be hands down the hardest thing, the hardest thing to either get them to cooperate in the way you want your business to be structured, or to find the guy with the right skill set that's reliable, that won't just be I'm distracted now and just off. And I don't think there's enough money in shop. You'd have to charge $250 an hour for labor rate, or some crazy number to be hey, dude that works, let's say you work for me. Hey, Aaron, I'm going to give you a comfortable living in California, where we are.
You're telling me California numbers, and I'm $250 an hour?
No, I don't.
Mercedes wouldn't do that to me.
No, I don't charge that. I'm saying you would have to.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? Because
I don't know.
We
I don't run a shop.
Right now, we charge $120 an hour, which I feel is not crazy high. It should probably be $160. But every time, but then I could pay the people more, but you would get less. You would never get a drift car in here. You would never get a single drift car if you charge $160. You'd still get that same Supra back there and a couple other ones. But I don't know.
Maybe that's why there's not a lot of successful drift shops.
You have to charge 85 to 100 an hour.
I think the answer to that is that drifters that operate the cars probably should always be able to work on them, especially as they scale to crazier things and go to Formula D and everything else. So they can't rely on shops. No. So regardless of you raising your prices or whatever, that's an anomaly. The car up on the lift. There's not a lot of drifters that are going to do that kind of thing.
No.
I mean, you couldn't do it. It's crazy.
No, heck no. There would be one a year, and there's typically one drift car a year that I'll build, and then by the time they're done building it, they're yeah, you need to teach me how to work. They always say it, and I don't know if he will, but we'll find out. But
what I always tell these people this too, you're just just go buy a C8 Corvette or a Ferrari and drift that, and you'll be more fantastic.
Ferrari?
Well, no, I mean you could buy two Ferraris for the cost of that car or something like that.
You could.
And you would be, I mean if you drive a JZ FRS, you're not. It's just another car on track. But if you were out there at Grange in a freaking Ferrari, you would be the madman. You would be Daigo to everyone, drifting a Liberty Walk Ferrari. It would be or Lamborghini. I don't know what he drives.
So true.
It'd be crazy. People could more creatively spend their money.
That was very true. I don't know if it's a drift shop is probably not the best business plan.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it.
No, but there are a lot of $250,000 to $350,000 drift cars now.
Yep.
And that absolutely you could be trying to drift around a GT3 or something, something crazier. And those would actually probably be more reliable drift cars.
It's so true. I don't know.
They'd be ridiculous. You could have a GT3 drift shop full of rich people in California.
Yeah, if they can build you just have to get the rich person to go in a drift car and drift, and they'll be this is so addicting. Then you could probably run a successful drift shop with super crazy prices, but getting those rich, you gotta know the rich people.
I don't know if I'd want to deal with the rich people anyways.
Probably not.
Probably not. And then, but like, you definitely will never have like an S13 in here.
No, we have in the past, we had all kinds of anything, and then we finally refined it to being like more Mark IV Supra, like, you know, that would be the only thing we would hopefully take in, or the right customer with the right 2J swap. That's where it kind of came out to now. But I've been trying to do more parts sales, and just like you're saying, you can
that
upskill,
scales, yeah.
And then I'll always have cars in here where I can develop some stuff on, and I always want to do my own drifting, so I need a shop. But the parts sales is so much easier to run as a business. So
yeah, because you know how much it is. You can warehouse it. You don't have some dude that's gonna not show up for work, and I mean, he might not show up, but you don't have a skilled worker that, you know,
exactly,
like a fabricator and everything that costs way more than a shipping boy.
Yep.
All right, well, we've already stolen his time for 3 videos. He has a shop to run and everything. Thank you so much. I think that this is really cool what you're doing. I think the model and everything of running a shop that specializes on something and does high quality work is awesome. I pity you doing this in California.
It's not easy.
So you're doing a great job, but you also won't have this clientele anywhere else either. So you just have to make it work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Boom. Bye, audience. See you later.